What if you could play a Magic the Gathering deck with every possible creature card in it? How would a deck like that even work? Well, that fundamental question is the premise behind the Momir format. Momir is a variant of Magic that exists only on its two digital platforms, Magic Online and Magic Arena. Since this video showcases the Arena variant, I'll quickly go over the rules of that game mode to give you a bit of context. In Momir, each player starts the game with a predetermined 60 card deck, mostly composed of basic snow-covered lands with some spells thrown in to spice things up. Each player also begins with an emblem called Factory of Momir Vig, which gives the passive ability to pay X mana and discard a card from your hand to create a token of a randomly generated creature with mana value X. For example, if you pay 6 mana, you could get a powerful game ender like Carnage Tyrant, or you can nearly always lose the game if you hit a Bells Unlock. While the format isn't always offered, Momir made its grand return to Magic Arena a few weeks ago for its midweek Magic event. After completing this goal in my personal time, I recorded 3 back-to-back matches for this video. Let's see if I have luck on my side. Wait, sorry, did I say luck? I meant skill. We start off game 1 on the draw, and I know what you're thinking. It does feel really weird to just jump into a match without determining your opening hand. Our opponent is quick on the draw, making a token copy of Jaspera Sentinel on turn 1. While it doesn't ramp them into 3 mana right away like a Llanowar Elves or an Elvish Mystic, mana ramping creatures are incredibly powerful in this format where conserving resources is far more important than usual. I decide to play my land for turn and not make a creature just yet, because 1 damage is far from threatening to me right now. Our opponent plays land number 2 and activates the Factory of Momir Vig, creating an Una's Blackguard. It's just a 1-powered flyer for now, but it could get dangerous if they get more rogues on the battlefield. Our opponent is also starting off very aggressively, so I decide to activate my emblem for X equals 2 to put up some defenses. I hit a Norn's Inquisitor, which is essentially 2 creatures for the price of 1 after I transform the Incubate token. Our opponent blunders big time by casting Croaking Counterpart on their Blackguard. You see, most copy and clone effects typically keep the original creature's type line, but this Innistrad rare creates a 1/1 frog token with that creature's attributes instead. They probably thought they were going to whittle my hand down with a couple of flying fairies, but instead they don't get the benefit of the rogue creature type. They also had to use the Sentinel to produce the blue mana, meaning that their shields are down for the next combat step. Instead of blindly rolling the dice on my turn, I cast King Darien the 38th, which pumps my entire board of tokens, and it can give them hexproof and indestructible in a pinch later on. My Inquisitor gets in for 2 damage and I pass the turn. They activate their emblem for 5 mana, creating a Sliver Hivelord token. While it won't protect the rest of their board, there's no way I'm attacking into a 5/5 indestructible creature anytime soon. We take 1 damage in the air and I play Junkyard Genius on my turn. Power Stone tokens can be used to pay for the activated ability of the Momir emblem, so this card acts as both a ramp spell and a future finisher later in the game. On their next turn, our opponent activates the emblem for 6, creating a Gatekeeper Gargoyle token. At this point, both of us have ramped once, but because our opponent was so aggressive in creating an early board presence, they only have 1 card left in hand while we still have 4. This means that in the following turns, we can produce bigger creatures than them because we have more resources. They get in with the Blackguard for 1, and we draw an Urtai on our turn. Urtai can either destroy one of their creatures or counter one of their emblem activations or spells in hand, making it an excellent pickup at this stage. We activate Momir for 6, and to my absolute shock and amazement, we get Muldrotha the Gravetide. So yeah, you know those lands we've been discarding this entire game? Well, now we don't even have to lose cards in our hand anymore because we can just play lands directly out of our graveyard for the foreseeable future. Our opponent plays it pretty wisely by flashing back Croaking Counterpart to create their own 1/1 Muldrotha Frog token, which keeps the insane static ability of the original. Now they aren't giving up their resources either, so we have to come up with a solution to this new problem. Oh yeah, and they spend the rest of their mana on the Momir emblem creating a Fleeting Spirit token. That's not normally a great idea, but they must feel pretty chuffed with a Muldrotha on their side. We play a land from our graveyard, then activate Momir for 7, creating a Terror Ballista. This seems like an incredible answer to their board of flying beaters. That is, until they get a Law Mage's Binding back from their graveyard, preventing us from attacking with our new Construct buddy. They also cast Mr. Orfeo the Boulder, which now lets them attack us for 7 flying damage every turn. We drop down to 7 life, and now we only have 1 more turn to stabilize before it's lights out. Luckily, my desperate pleas are answered when we top deck a Path of Peril, which is even more effective because I can keep my board safe with the Darien. Thanks to Muldrotha, I can sack Darien to keep my token safe, wrath the rest of the board, and then cast Darien again in later turns. They activate Momir for 8, getting a Distended Mindbender that right now is too small to fight with my Muldrotha. They get in with a big sliver, so we transform the Incubate token and then throw the Quisitor in front of it. On my next turn, I replay Darien from the graveyard and leave my mana open, allowing me to respond with an Urtai where needed. They activate Momir for 9, getting a Mockery of Nature. We play a land and then slam the 10-drop, but unfortunately whip with a Woodcaller Automaton. It's still an enormous 9/9, meaning it can take down any of the Eldrazi that our opponent can muster in combat. They respond by slamming another 9-drop, and they get pretty lucky when they hit Zakama Primal Calamity. Normally this would be a big game-ending card, but Zakama's land untapping ability is only a cast trigger, meaning it's just gonna have to have a staring contest with our Woodcaller for now. We can't let that prehistoric pest destroy our board, so when it gets to our turn, I kill it with Urtai, and our opponent scoops the game in response. Now that we're done randomly generating our creature tokens, it's time to randomly generate a YouTube call to action. Hey there, fantastic viewers. If you're having a blast, let me know by smashing that like button. It shows your appreciation and helps others discover this content too. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell emoji. By doing this, you'll never miss out on any of the exciting content we have planned. I'm sorry, this is a stupid bit. Let's just get on to game number 2. We get to play first this game, and I have a few decent cards in my opener, just missing the green source to cast Mr. Orfeo. We Momir responsibly by doing nothing but dropping lands on the first few turns, so I start applying pressure on turn 3, rolling into a Grizzled Huntmaster. Yeah, in retrospect, I probably could have used its ETB abilities to grab all my Mr. Orfeos out of my deck, but it was such a wall of text that I really couldn't understand what the ability did. Alchemy cards, man, I tell ya. Our opponent also activates for 3, creating a Seer of the Last Tomorrow. Mill isn't much more viable in Momir, and it isn't even big enough to block my Huntmaster at the moment. We get in for 4 damage, then activate Momir for 4, creating a Riverwise Augur that brainstorms when it ETBs. We put back 2 lands, but notably we have access to all 5 of our colors now. They activate Momir for 4, and they get a pretty threatening card with Sphinx of New Prov. This beast is nearly a Serra Angel with a pseudo ward too, and since Momir plays a whole lot like Limited, this is one of the biggest bombs you can possibly hit on X=4. When we get to our turn, we play Mr. Morvio and Mr. Morbius. We play Mr. Orfeo and attack with our other 2 creatures, doubling the Augur's power. Our opponent drops the ball massively when they chump with the Sphinx? What are they thinking? I understand wanting to remove the Huntmaster, but that was such a bad trade. They activate Momir for 5, hitting a Doomwake Giant. It's annoyingly tough, but there aren't many enchantment creatures for them to hit that would let them reuse the Constellation trigger. We make a token for 6 mana, and we get a Red Dragon, which deals 4 damage to our opponent's face when it ETBs. With Mr. Morbius on the field, we have lethal damage on board with an 8-powered Flying Dragon. We also have backup removal in our hand with Law Mage's Binding, so it looks like we're gonna have this game in the bag. All we have to do is survive one more turn. Of course, it wasn't gonna be that easy. Honestly, why didn't they go for the 2-turn clock of a Flying Dragon? They attack us for 6, then Momir for 3, creating a Fell Stinger token. This is perfect for us. If they exploit the Seer, they take 2 damage, then we can Binding the Stinger and swing in for lethal. They fall into that exact trap, and with our Aura in place, they have no defenses when we swing in for Xaxes. For our final match, we're on the draw, and our opponent starts the Momir train right away with a Charmed Stray. Knowing how this play works in our favor from the first match, we're glad to trade away a couple life points for bigger late game threats. We get attacked for 1, and I decide to run out Momir on 2, creating a Martyr of Dusk. This vampire drops a little buddy when it dies, making it an excellent early game defensive creature. Our opponent gets in with the cat again, then times out deciding whether to make a token or not. We negate their life gain by attacking for 2 damage, then we cast King Darien and oh yeah, it looks like our game crashed. Yep, that is certainly an MTG Arena moment right there. We reboot, then pass back to our opponent. They rip apart my Darien, which, I mean, yeah, totally fair. Who decided to put this card in the Arena Momir decks? They Momir for 2, creating a Plaguecrafter's Familiar. They scratch us with the cat again, then decide to pass the turn. We draw Rigo, Streetwise Mentor, which is a little too late to the party to draw some cards, but it can be an excellent blocker due to the shield counter. We get in for 2 damage, then pass. Our opponent casts a main phase Cabaretti Charm, creating 2 1/1 citizens, then Momirs for 2 to get a Fissure Wizard. Our opponent is going very wide and very small, which doesn't bode well with only 2 blockers. Again, I do have the Sweeper in hand, which would work incredibly well for us in this scenario. Solar Flare makes all creatures deal damage to themselves equal to their power, and I have a creature with a shield counter and a creature that leaves a token behind. This would be a massive blowout, but unfortunately I'm still missing that red mana. Let's just hope we get lucky with our top deck soon. We attack for 2, and they trade it with a citizen, so we get left behind a lifelinking vampire token. We Momir for 5 post-combat, creating a Vampire Sovereign which drains our opponent for 3. This is great for us because we have a powerful blocker that won't die to Solar Flare. We pass, and they cast an Assemble from hand, creating 3 2/2 Vigilant Knights. Come on, red mana, we could really use you right now. With no red mana in sight, I'm Momir for 6, creating an Earth Cult Elemental. Our d20 rolls a 9, forcing each of us to sacrifice a permanent. We lose the vampire and they lose a citizen, but we get in for 3 damage with Sovereign. They activate Momir for 6, getting a hasty trampling Ironhoof Boar. Great, that's just what we wanted to see. We take a massive hit, dropping down to 9 life, and before you ask, yeah, I'm also not too sure why I don't just block the boar with my Elemental. Since I have a somewhat decent ETB trigger and Earth Cult Elemental, I flash back Croaking Counterpart, rolling a 12 so only they have to sack a permanent. They lose a Knight token and we hold back the fort on defense for the next turn. They Momir for 6, hitting Rakdos the Showstopper of all creatures. And in typical Rakdos fashion, it does more damage to our opponent than it does to us. Finally, after all this time, we draw a mountain, and since we need to board wipe this turn, I chip in some damage with the elemental. We get through, dropping their life total to 8, and then we solar flare, leaving only the vampire sovereign behind. With our opponents now stuck on 6 lands and in top deck mode, they activate Momir for 6 to create a Firesong and Sunspeaker token. We're now free to play the Morbius that's been rotting in our hands since the start of the match, dropping our opponent down to 2 life. They activate Momir for 5 for some reason, but it does work in their favor when they hit a Drider. That's just great. Now they have a creature with reach that can eliminate our Sovereign. Since there are more creatures that we can hit on the 8-drop slot, I decide to Momir for 8, creating a Yavimaya Sojourner. We force our opponent to trade their Drider for our Vampire, leaving us with the creature advantage yet again. They Momir for 5 and get a Mausoleum Harpy, hilariously not triggering Ascend due to the lack of resources on their side. This Harpy will be a problem for us when we have no way to deal with flyers. Our turn comes around and we Momir for 9 and somehow hit Iona's Shield of Emeria. We choose black with Iona's trigger, hoping to shut down any removal our opponent may try to hold on us. We attack with an 8/6 Sojourner, forcing them to chump with the Firesong and Sunspeaker. And it looks like our opponents have had enough, swinging in with the Harpy that dies to Iona. To finish them off, we double Iona's power to deal a massive 20 damage in one turn. Hi there, it's me, the guy behind the voice. I'm gonna do something a little more impromptu. I don't have this scripted out, so I hope I don't just ramble on too much like I usually do. But I just want to come up here and apologize for the lack of content lately. I've been trying to do weekly videos and I was kind of getting consistent on it, and then all of a sudden everything flopped because I started playing Tears of the Kingdom. It's a good game, I'd highly recommend, but dear God, if you got nothing but time on your hands, it's gonna be a time sink. I'm gonna be popping on here to give you guys 2 bits of information. For one, I'm on social media if you want to follow me. Well, no duh, that's kind of stupid. Why the hell would I say it like that? If you want to keep updated on projects that I have in the works, you're gonna find me down on JayoticMTG at all of these social medias that I've probably laid up above my head. And secondly, I've got a lot more videos down in the pipeline. I've got a lot more Magic Arena gameplay coming out for you. I've also got some more shorts and fun facts like I used to do before. And I also want to get into some deep dive analysis, kind of, go a little bit more in depth in stuff that not a lot of people have talked about. So if you're looking forward to any of that, I hope you click that like button and I hope you subscribe down below as well. That's all for today, so until next time, take care. Alright Twix, time to say goodbye.